It seemed that as a family in Chicagoland, there was just one radio station in the 50s and 60s you called home, and that was WGN Radio. I'd always heard as a kid about this Ward Quaal, who seemed to be a genius at giving radio listeners what they wanted to hear. And as the GM at WGN, he knew, when he negotiated the Cubs from WIND in '56, that WGN listeners would want Jack Quinlan to be a part of the package too. And he was right.
I came back home to Tribune Company in 1956, August 1, 1956, and immediately began negotiations with Mr. Wrigley to get the team for 1957. And there was already a contract for 1957 with WIND. So what I did was I made a 10-year offer to Mr. Wrigley for the years 59 forward. Well, or 58 forward, rather. And I made a lame duck out of WIND, so they allowed us to buy them out. And so we took over the team in 57. And Jack Quinlan was doing the play-by-play at that time. We brought him over to WGN, and that was the beginning of my association with him. But I had been a long-time admirer, and to this day I say he's the greatest baseball reporter of them all.
How were you able to convince Mr. Wrigley to give WGN an opportunity after they'd been on WIND for what, I presume, quite a number of years?
We went in with an offer that we thought at that time was rather substantial. Of course, we can laugh at it today, but bear in mind this is 1956. We offered Mr. Wrigley $75,000 a year for the Cubs and a 10-year deal. And he said, yes, you can have that. He said, I know they'll never pay that kind of money at WIND. So when WIND heard that we would pay 75, they were paying 40. We were able to make a deal with Ralph Atlas, and we bought him out for the 1957 season.
And Mr. Quaal was determined to prove that spending $75,000 on the Cubs would be a profitable investment for WGN.
How quickly did your decision to spend that sort of money on the Cubs prove to be a profitable one for you?
It took a while for it to be profitable because I was dealing with a situation at WGN Radio and television too, with people who didn't know a thing about what they were doing. They were not trained in competitive management, and believe it or not, the man who was in charge of sales for WGN Radio had the title Commercial Manager at WGN Radio and Television. You can't serve two masters. You've got to sell radio, you've got to sell television.
Yep.
And so I changed all that, and we were pretty close to, well, we were already in spring training, and they hadn't made a single sale. So I went out myself with Jack Quinlan and Lou Boudreau, and we did the selling job. We brought in I well recall, you remember hearing Oak Park Federal on
Oak Park Federal Savings and Loan.
Yeah, they had one address, 1000 West Madison Street in Oak Park, and we arranged a nice luncheon for them over there, and I made a presentation along with Quinlan and Boudreau. Made a beautiful presentation, and Brickhouse was there to help on that too, over at the Ambassador East Hotel. And in the course of the discussion, I learned from the then head of Oak Park Federal that they wanted to reach a value of $75 million as a company in the next 5 years. I said, well, if you'll come along with me, come along with us on WGN Radio and Cub Baseball, we'll have you at that $75 million figure before Labor Day is with us. And the man who headed the firm stood up and he said, Ward, I can't believe that that's possible. I said, well, if we don't have it done, if we don't have you at a $75 million value by Labor Day, I said, I will step aside as general manager of this station. He said, you mean that? I said, I mean that. I put it in writing. He called me about the 1st of August. He said, Ward, your job is safe. We're just over $76 million at worst. That's the value of baseball.
And a key, if not the key, to Ward Qual's job security that year was Jack Quinlan.
What was it about Jack Quinlan that so many veteran sportscasters like Jack Buck down here or Jack Brickhouse, what would prompt them to say, as you did earlier, that Jack Quinlan was the greatest who ever lived? What do you think?
I think it was the color in his voice. Natural. He was we hear, Mr. Barber, of natural athletes, natural singers. He was a natural voice man, a natural announcer. I played football at Michigan with the great Tom Harmon.
Oh, wow.
We couldn't find 10 people to combine and have the talents of Tom Harmon. He was a natural. That's what we had in Jack Quinlan. He was a natural. And, of course, he loved the game of baseball, and he especially loved the Cubs. That made the difference.
From what a couple of the folks have told me, he was equally as good doing football. And
Absolutely. As I say, there was color. There was something in his voice, an unusual delivery, and so good.
Here's Jack with Irv Kupcinet calling the amazing '63 NFL title game between the Chicago Bears and the New York Giants. Remember?
No score, 9 minutes and 9 seconds left in the first period at Wrigley Field. This time Gifford split wide to the right. Aaron Thomas is a tight right end. Here's Gifford in motion to the left. Tittle barking signals. Hands off to Morrison. And like a hurdler, he jumps over the line and gets down to about the 17-yard line. Here is Schaffner split wide. Thomas now on the left side with Gifford the flank right end. Wide Tittle barking signals. 1st and 10 for the New York Giants on the 16-yard line of the Chicago Bears. Yat gets the snap, hands off to Morrison, and they gang tackle him with Bill George and Stan Jones leading the attack, and Doug Atkins is on the bottom of the stack along with Larry Morris and Fred Williams. Gifford split wide to the right. Tittle back to throw. He tosses in the end zone. Touchdown to Gifford. Tittle back to throw again. Y.A. looks. Here's a screen pass. Intercepted by Larry Morris. He's at the 50. Morris at the 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20. Down at the 7-yard line. Tittle is back to throw. The rush is on. The pass is intercepted by Obradovic at the 25. And he's out of bounds on the 15-yard line. Wade calling signals. Head down. He scores! Wade calling signals. Head down. Eats up the clock. He sneaks. Oh, the Bears are the champions. The Bears have won it. 14-10. The Chicago Bears are the new world champions of professional football.